Depression, anxiety, as you said, it's rampant. We all deal
We
with it.
all have it at some point in our lives, some more than others.
Yeah, and we all deserve, you all deserve happiness.
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for tuning into our second act with Paige and Silka.
For your second active life. Hey there, Silka.
Hello, Paige. Glad to have you back again today. I've been busy with some other interviews with some of our content experts, and that's actually what I want to talk to you about today. We just finished a really interesting one on dating and dating TMI, too much information. How do you get past that first date and not just spill your guts that turns, people off, etc. So I thought that was an interesting topic. We'll link to that. What came out of that, though, is something a bit more serious that I really want to get your input on, and that is, dating when you have some serious issues, such as mental health issues, mental illness. 1 in 5 people, according to the stats, will deal with a mental health issue. Can we shed some light on that? How to date with with a mental illness, and how do you disclose it and when?
Wow, well, that's a huge, big umbrella, Silka. So let me try and answer that in a very short amount of time. So there's a difference between mental illness, that's something that's been diagnosed, and having a mental health situation where you're going through depression, where it's situational. You're depressed, anxiety, whatever it is that goes through. So we're kind of looking at two different things here. So the first thing is, what happens if you've been, diagnosed with a mental health illness? Well, first of all, you and I both know we're in a world where it's stigma, stigma, stigma. And I know I've been trying for decades to change that stigma through the work that I do, but it's always there and it's still going to be there. So I guess one of the questions is that you asked is, gosh, if you're dating after 50, when do you bring it up, right? Like, when do you share that you have something? You don't share it on the first date. You don't share it in a text message. You don't share it in an email, because I've seen people do that before, thinking, okay, that will, not be as intense, not be as, big of a punch. It's been my experience with my clients that, you have to date a little bit, spend some time with the person, see how they are, kind of talk about topics that kind of go around the issue of mental health. It comes up all the time in politics. It comes up all the time in the news. It's a good way to kind of say, hey, did you see so-and-so talk about mental illness? Or, like, I know I just saw a commercial for Brian Phelps talking about therapy and how he has had to deal with his depression issues. And I thought, bravo to him. That's a really good thing to bring up in a conversation as a very casual thing of, hey, did you see that commercial? What do you think about that? You're going to get some feedback from the person you're dating as to where they are with depression, anxiety, different times of, or bipolar, different types of mental illness, what their take is on it. So I'll pause for a second just to get your input on that, but it's a really casual kind of way to kind of talk about things as you're feeling things out with your potential partner.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and we did say that in the other segment too, that kind of level of seriousness, is, you have to develop some empathy first, or some fondness, and have be in a relationship, or know that you want to head that way before you put that on the table. Otherwise, it probably is too soon. One thing I want to say is that depression, anxiety, as you said, it's rampant. We all deal with it.
Have it at some point in our lives, some more than others.
Yeah, and we all deserve. You all deserve happiness and love, and coupling up in relationships is one way to really get past, work through those issues that are intensified when you're alone. I have some friends. I'd reference another guy that I was thinking about, just a great guy who just won't date, or he's just he's just never going to go anywhere because he suffered with depression and had a breakdown in his past, even though he's wonderful now. And I just think that is such a important topic for us to talk about. I don't know exactly what answers we can give that are practical, other than just that, yes, it's something that you do need to talk about. But when is the best time? Can you give some?
Well, that's what I was saying, is that the first thing you need to do is kind of, you're trying to figure out where they are with mental health issues. And instead of just coming out and saying, I deal with depression, how are you with that? Okay, great if you want to do that. But this is a really hot topic. So again, I'm going to say it again, is give examples and talk about things that are going on in the world, that are going on in the news, because that is a real clear way to find out where this potential partner is. Do they have empathy? Do they know people who've struggled with different types of mental health, illness? Do they share something at that time? You're kind of investigating where they are, feeling out how you feel about things. That's really a positive way to kind of go and talk about things. That's the first thing that comes to my mind that I've had some of my clients do, and they've had really great success with it, because they'll come back and say, wow, this person had no empathy at all, and I knew right then and there this wasn't going to work. Or this person had a lot of empathy and started to share about other people that they know. And then when you get into the conversation, you can gently tip your toe in it saying, hey, at this time of my life, I've been through a lot of things, and I've had to struggle with bouts of depression, bouts of anxiety, and it's been, really, really challenging. You don't have to go and dive right into, I've been diagnosed this long, this is how it is. Sometimes it spills out that way, but there's so many different ways that you can go about doing it to where you're more comfortable about doing it and feeling out where the other person is as well. Because as much as you're feeling them out, you don't know what's behind their curtain. Maybe they've struggled with some mental health illness or depression or anxiety, and they're feeling you out as well too, because that's what dating is about. Feeling each other out, not, struggling with being vulnerable with topics that are very, very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and of course you want to do it at a time where you're not in in an episode. I think you don't want to be, quote, discovered or have somebody find your meds and then be thrown into having that conversation. I think that's what happened to some, again, some friends that we talked about. All of a sudden, then it becomes a deceptive thing. Or if you don't explain, that sometimes you suffer with anxiety, you withdraw, you're treating your partner, your loved one, in ways that they don't understand. That if you did have that conversation, they can be supportive versus, not knowing what to do or being hurt by it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's a little further in. We're talking about, right? You want to know when to share what's going on with you. And as far as, oh my gosh, you have an episode and they see it, I have a very different take on that. And I
Okay.
take on, this is who you are, and this is the piece of you. And if you happen to be out with this relatively new potential partner and something happens, guess what? It happens. And that's okay, because it gives you an opportunity to say, this is who I am. This is what I'm struggling with. I was kind of waiting to share more with you, but it happens. And you're going to know right then and there what happens with the other person. So I look at things differently of, my gosh, it's got to be at a certain time, certain this, because life is not at a certain time in a box. Let's open the curtain. It doesn't always happen that way. Shit happens. And sometimes it comes out and you deal with it when you deal with it. So I'm more of the adage of, there's many different ways to come about it,
Mm-hmm.
and pick and choose different ways to come about it that feel comfortable for you. But if something gets triggered and you're out with this person, embrace it. Know that there's nothing wrong with you in a sense of you're broken, you're fractured, you're this, because everybody deals with some form, everyone's on the spectrum of mental health situational types of issues that they deal with. Maybe yours is longer than others. Maybe you've been diagnosed and you're struggling with it more. But that doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. And that's a really good time if something comes up and the other person's like, oh my God, I don't know if I can deal with it. That's okay, because at least they're being honest, and This is not somebody who's going to be able to deal with that. That does not mean that the next person doesn't see you for the beauty that you are. And you might be surprised, because I've had a lot of experience with clients who say, Paige, I told them I had bipolar, and then they opened up and told me that they had an STD, or they opened up and told me that they struggled with depressive diagnosis, depressive type of disorders. So you never know what someone's holding as well.
Well, and we're coming, to the end. This is such a deep hot topic. I mean, I obviously emotional health, mental health is important to both of us. I want to, again, just reemphasize the stats that you are not alone in this. So, let's all work together to, destigmatize and be, have emotional health be a topic of conversation that's easily talked about, not this difficult. Paige, what would you like to say in closing?
I'm just I just come from a space of, because I've been in this field for so long and I've dealt with different ethnicities, cultures around the world, everything. It comes down to, we are souls in a human body. And in this human form that we're in, there is no perfection. And we're all struggling with things. And sometimes you go through mental health type of situational things when you have a trauma in your life. Sometimes you've been diagnosed because of trauma that you grew up with, and it's hard to, kind of decipher, is it this or is it this? Bottom line is, you're okay with no matter what you have going on in your life, and you will find somebody who sees the beauty of you and sees the beauty of your soul, and not the label of what you've been diagnosed with or are struggling with.
Yes, and we all deserve happiness. So,
Hmm.
Paige, thank you so much. We'll see you on our next segment of Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life. Bye.
If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell next to the subscribe button, hit that too, and we'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.